Um, Following the game last night with Fernando Tatís, he went this morning, got an MRI, and was examined by Dr. Robertson and Dr. Leak over at UCSD. I think overall, like pretty positive report in general from looking at the imaging. Rotator cuff, bone structure, muscle structure look good. There's some slight labral tearing, which is consistent with really anytime you have a subluxation and you have a shoulder that's dislocated. And I think from his situation, it seems like last night the shoulder popped in and out of place. Overall the exam today was pretty uneventful. He's in good spirits, has good range of motion, really doesn't have any real inflammation overall in that area. We are going to go ahead and put him on the disabled list, make a roster move today. I think, in general for us, I think it's just being safe and, giving the left shoulder inflammation and some of the instability a chance to calm down and, put him in a good spot here, use the 10 days to continue working with him and, again, like put him in a good spot to continue for the season. But ultimately, it's our medical team and Fernando agreed non-surgical, go the route of some rest with some exercises that he can do to help that area, help strengthen that area, and hopefully look up in 10 days and at that point in time look for him to get back on the field and play. So that's overall that's I think a pretty positive report. I think, most importantly, he's feeling good today. He wants to be in the lineup, but I think, from our standpoint, putting him on the DL, we felt like was the right move, both short and long term, and kind of see, let's use the next 10 days to put him in a better spot and go from there with it. So,
AJ, then is the hope that he will be ready to play in 10 days, or you're just going to use the 10 days to sort of strengthen the area, get it under control, and reevaluate at that time?
Yeah, I think we'll see. I mean, I think with all these injuries, we'll see how he responds over the course of the next week or so. But honestly, I wouldn't rule anything out. I think this takes him out for the road trip. I think we saw in spring training. I think the last time he had one of these episodes, he was back in a day or two, and wanted to be in the lineup. I think I think from this standpoint, we'll evaluate here as we go in the next few days, but I don't think we're ruling anything out as far as him being able to come back and play when he's off the DL in 10 days.
Did the medical team give you any indication of how common it is for this to reoccur, and if it does, is there the potential for more damage? What are sort of the risk factors moving forward at this point?
Yeah, we talked about that a lot. Obviously, I think again, I think. Them having history with Fernando, I think, obviously being able to do an exam in person, put their hands on him, see how things respond, and then look at the imaging. They clearly felt that this is not something that we feel like long term we're putting him at risk if he goes out there and continues playing this season. Again, I think there's always the chance that he can have another episode, another incident where there's another subluxation, and at that point in time we'll have to we'll evaluate from there. But this is not a situation where our doctors, knowing the player, seeing him and examining him, look at the images, feel like that we're putting him in an issue to have any kind of long-term more damage or anything like that if he goes out there and plays. I think if he continues to have issues and this becomes something that's a regular part of it, and we do decide, hey, surgery is the answer, I think surgery is going to go out and fix it according to our medical team. We're not putting him in more risk by putting him out there over the course of the next few months and hopefully the rest of the season. No, I don't feel like that. I mean, I think our medical group, they do a great job. I think in general they're conservative, and I think that they're obviously very realistic, and they're always looking at the the long-term future. They understand how important really all of our players are, and understand this is their careers. But especially a player like Fernando that's going to be here for a long time. So obviously we take that very seriously. I think the group that works with him daily, he was in, again, like I think these things, he was in on a strengthening program following the spring training incident, and he was doing well. So I think it's just a matter of, I think from their standpoint, probably limiting some of the positions that he may be in. I think, but I think he was staying religious with his program, and he always looked back and try to evaluate everything and say, hey, could we do some things differently? especially with him leaving the game last night. But honestly, I think I look at it. There was not a lot of looking at it last night and saying, hey, did we rush too soon? Did we push too soon? He passed every test that we put in front of him. He felt great, and I think this is something that just kind of some of the positions he puts in. I think we're gonna put him in some different spots, and I think honestly, I think he was in a good spot to be out there playing. Now we've got to handle this next challenge here over the course of the next few months. Yeah, no, and I think honestly, I've had a lot of talks here with people over the last few days, or the last 24 hours, honestly, really since last night. We have a bunch of people in our clubhouse. I think everybody has their own personal experiences and kind of goes through, hey, this is the way I felt. But I mean, talking to a lot of guys that have played, with a similar a similar situation and went out and played a full season. Some guys end up having some surgery at the end of the season. Some guys didn't. But honestly, it's pretty consistent. Like a lot of guys will describe an incident like that and then say, hey, the next day I was good to play and I was good to play for the next 6 months, So that's, that there's some situations like that. There are other guys that, honestly, like it led to, other people in their experiences, hey, led to surgery down the road. So I think everybody's a little bit, from an individual standpoint, a little bit different. So you try to just really examine the individual and deal with that situation. But honestly, we were, we've had quite a few guys that have talked about the situation that were in the clubhouse that say, yeah, was able the next day after feeling pain that night or that minute, honestly, and 20 minutes later, I felt really good. I think the good news with Fernando, he's got full range of motion this morning. He feels good. He examined really well. He doesn't have a ton of limitations, and now we've, now I think it's putting everybody's head together to try to make sure he's not in that same spot here, in 10 days or, when he does come back over the course of the next month.
You mentioned the range of motion, and obviously he has incredible range in general. Is that anything that's going to have to change in terms of his swing or anything that he does on the defensive side in terms of maybe not putting that shoulder in a compromising position, or is the hope that it just play as he's always played?
Yeah, I think that's what that's what we'll talk about. I think I think more about in terms of, I know there's always been the debate, his style of play. Have we had a lot of conversations with him about his style of play, and he's obviously an ultra aggressive player, and makes things happen, and he's I think from that standpoint, I think it's really goes kind of hand in hand with some of the things that we'll do from a strengthening standpoint, and then probably look at. Again, well, I think we'll be talking about over the next few weeks, whether it's from a finish to a swing or staying on your feet more on the defensive end, or kind of where he's at, running the bases. We're gonna continue to examine that like we always have, and I think have a little bit more information, and that'll be part of the next 10 days too. I think part of it will be kind of a little bit of a reset from a health standpoint. I think a bigger part of it's just kind of digging into what's going to keep him on the field for the whole season, so we don't have another incident like this again, where he's got to leave a ball game, or he's got to be out of be on a disabled list or miss some time. So I think that'll be really the course of the next 10 days and over the course of the using this rest period to kind of examine that a little bit and have some answers here going forward. I mean, what he describes, it doesn't seem like he's in pain really outside of the incident when it happens. And I know the one in spring training when he picked up the ground ball was a little bit more like an aggravation, a pinching is what he described. And then, I think he reacted to that, walked off the field. It was spring training. I think he was, professional in what he did. And then, he talked about really kind of like, minutes after that, and definitely like, the bottom half of that inning, he was saying, if this is a regular season game, I'm not coming out. Now, last night was, it looked different. He felt a little bit different. I think it was, it was more what he described, more moderate pain, what he was feeling, but obviously it was enough to, he wasn't staying in that ball game last night. He walked off the field. When he left the stadium last night, he seemed to be in pretty good spirits. When he woke up this morning, probably more importantly, and here today, he's looking to play, so I think, from that standpoint, it seemingly is something, and you'll have to talk to him, but it's seemingly something where it's more in the moment that he's feeling it, and it's not something that he's, days later, weeks later, that he's, it's a day-to-day thing where he's feeling that pain, a week later. It's kind of like in the moment he feels it. Next day he seems to be in a good spot, and that seems to be pretty consistent with what we're hearing from a lot of guys that have gone through it and had similar issues. And then I think the other part of your question in terms of, is this going to continue to happen? I think that's hopefully like by us not having the surgery and not going down that route, and going down the non-surgical route. I think we're hoping that we can control it and contain it so this does not become a regular issue for him this year or in the future. And if it does, and this is something that's becoming more regular, then obviously that's when you start looking at the surgical route and trying to fix it that way. So we put it behind us and can get him on the field regularly.
Hi, AJ. I think we first learned about the shoulder popping in on a regular basis back in spring training. I don't know how normal that is, but is the expectation that heals itself with strength training, or do you guys feel that surgery is going to be inevitable?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see here during the year. I mean, I've talking to different people, talking to our doctors. I think there's situations where players, really have not had to have a surgery, and depending on how, severe the labral tearing is, depending on what else is going on in that shoulder, depending on how often and what that instability looks like, how often it's popping in and out of place. So I think, again, like talking to our doctors, the expectation is that we're able to address it right now without having to go to the surgery route. And then I think there's players that'll get through a season, and then the off season they'll have a surgery because they don't want to have to go through that maintenance, that regular maintenance every single day to stay on the field. There's other guys, that have had to do it right away because of the severity of what they've got going on. So, I think from our standpoint, it's kind of a wait and see in terms of, is it inevitable? I think, I didn't get that. I didn't get that from our doctors today when I asked them that question. I didn't get that. Hey, this is just not just a matter of, of when. It's like, hey, let's see where this goes, and it may not be something that he needs to have surgery for. I think I think the hope as we get through the year and the feeling as we get through the season, and then we re-examine, as we go into the off season and make a decision at that point about where things stand.
But they're pretty confident that he cannot really make this worse by playing. Because it just seems like injury. He seems to get the injury bug quite often.
Yeah, I think in terms of like talking to the medical group, and that was obviously a huge question that we all talk about and spend a lot of time on over the last really the last few weeks, but definitely over the last 24 hours. I think in his particular situation, and that's what you got to go off of. I think everybody can speculate and say, hey, in my situation or another guy's situation from a few years ago, but in his particular situation with what the images show, the nature of the injury, how he's examining, again, I ton of faith in our doctors and our group, and they're very confident this is something that, hey, if it ends up being surgery, he's not going to do something over the course of the next few weeks, months, et cetera, that's going to make that situation worse for the long term for him. It's just going to be something that he's going to have to fix because we weren't able to to keep him on the field and keep that shoulder stable over the course of the next 6 months and hopefully a lot of years. So we'll see where it goes. But I think again, our medical doctors and team very confident what they're talking about in terms of we're not putting him in a bad spot. It's just really him being able to stay on the field and hopefully maintain that shoulder stability.
Just to clarify, did you say you guys have talked to him about a style of play?
Yeah, I mean,
how receptive was he to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, like it's been at different points in time, like in terms of what's said, what's not said. I think for us, like following last night, and I think coming off of last night, I think that'll be more of a conversation in terms of part of it's style of play, part of it's just things that he has to do from a positioning standpoint, with his body to to make sure that he's putting himself in the best possible positions to stay on the field. So like similar to when he had the stress reaction in the back, I think there's certain things that we were able to do in the training room to make sure that didn't reoccur for him down the road. I think we're gonna, I think we had conversations with him over the course of the last few weeks, following this, the spring training incidents, about what may help him with maintain that shoulder stability. And following last night's incident, where we're started that process and continue to talk to him about, hey, what may aggravate it, and what's the risk and the reward for doing certain things on the field. So I think that'll be continuing conversation here over the course of really the whole season is my guess, but definitely over the course of the next week, as he's on the IL, we'll continue to have more conversation about that.
AJ, how optimistic are you that this won't recur when he gets back out there?
I mean, again, I think as a group, like, we feel, I think everybody was very confident that surgery wasn't the answer at this point in time. Exactly how he's going to respond and how his body's going to respond. Again, I think we feel like there's you know, he's got it. He's got, you know, and he's going to have all the possible information, help, medical help, technique to do everything he can to stay on the field and play. In terms of like giving it a percentage or you know, sitting down and saying, hey, like, you know, is it 90%, 85%? I don't know. I just think like to me, like the biggest thing was, you know, in talking to Dr. Robertson, Dr. Lee, talking to Fernando, talking to, you know, the people on our medical crew. They felt like very confident this is not surgery right now, and that, you know, we could keep him on the field. You know, exact percentages or anything like that. They felt confident we can keep him on the field here this year, and you know, and be able to put him in a spot where he can be successful and not be in pain, and we're not doing any kind of long-term damage. They felt very confident in that diagnosis. You know, and ultimately, you know, we'll see how things play out here over the course of the next couple of months.
Those 5 games. Do you think that this had anything to do with him not exactly tearing up these first 5 games, 4.5 games?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't. I mean, I think he's again. I think, you know, it's a 5-game stretch, so you know, I think you know, it's everybody has good 5-game stretches, and you know, and you know, and at times, you know, you don't play your best baseball for 5 games. Again, like, I mean, you've seen him, you know, whether he's, you know, I think hitting a ball 465 feet the other night, you know, putting a big swing on a baseball. That was, you know, again, I don't think you're doing that if you're in a lot of pain or not in a spot where you can perform. So I don't feel like personally that, you know, the slower start to the last 5 days had anything to do with it. I think, again, like the incident in spring training and the incident last night was more of kind of a one-time thing. Like moment in time, and now the question is how do we get through that, you know, so we're not dealing with that hopefully here, you know, throughout the season. But it doesn't seem like this is something that he's feeling those aches and pains like every single day as he's going through it. It's literally like he feels it and then it's gone. Like the next, in spring training, it was like gone like few, you know, an hour later or really minutes later. You know, last night was more, you know, throughout the evening and into the morning he was in a better spot.